Good afternoon. I wanted to share something that I've been thinking about all day. Um, I've been camping out in Luke 5 mentally and emotionally for like a week or so now. Um, I've written a little bit about it before. I wrote a post, I think, called Grace Gives Big Time, and it was about Jesus and whenever he first encounters Peter and Jesus teaches from his boat, and then afterwards, Jesus tells Peter to launch out for a catch, and he fills his boat with fish. And so my post was called Grace Gives Big Time. And it was just an introduction to or a post about Jesus and how with him he brings grace and giving to us. And so, but that's not really what I'm going to talk about today. So today I've been thinking about Peter. I love Simon Peter. I feel like I have a lot, I connect with him a lot. And I think it's because I say things, I blurt things, I say things without thinking a lot, and then I just can't shut up. So he does that sometimes, but he gets better. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. In Luke 5, after he hauls in that huge catch of fish, he comes to Jesus and he falls down at his feet and he says, depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. And so the way that Peter sees himself is totally different from the way that Jesus sees him. Jesus looks at him and he sees potential. He sees what Peter is going to do. He knows the end from the beginning. And so he tells Peter, he's like, and I love this. This is the Passion Translation. He says, do not yield to your fear, Simon Peter. From now on, you will catch men for salvation. This was at the beginning of Jesus's ministry. Jesus's earthly ministry was only for like 3 years. And so he meets Peter and he tells him he's going to be a fisherman, a fisher of men. And so what I want to talk about today is where you start out is not where you're going to finish, and you are not finished yet. Simon Peter starts out here in this place. He has been a fisherman, so I feel like he's been catching fish. So he has something to connect to what Jesus is saying to him. He has something in his heart. Like, I used to be a waitress. I served people on a regular basis. And so I have a servant mentality in my head as far as how to serve people and to meet needs, because I've done that a lot. I've waited tables in restaurants. And so I think Peter had something to connect what he said to him, you're going to be a fisher of men. But this is the very beginning of Peter's life. And so he's just starting out. He doesn't know what's coming in the future. And I feel like that's the same with us. If God told us what we were going to be doing later on, it would freak us out really bad, or we would get scared. And so he has to take Peter through this process. Like at the very beginning, he says, you're going to be a fisher of men. And Peter doesn't know what that means yet. But Jesus leads them through this process. And he's teaching him, and he's training him, and he's showing him what he's going to do. And even at the end of that 3 years with Jesus, Peter fails and he messes up, but he's not done. And you're not done either. And that's something I didn't think about until just now. If you have a failure somewhere along the way, you're not done. Jesus has the last word. He's the beginning and the end. He's the Alpha and the Omega, and he knows the beginning from the end. So I just want to encourage somebody today that you're not finished. Okay, so Peter starts out in this spot, feeling like he's a sinful man. And Jesus takes him and totally transforms his life. And then in Acts 2, after Jesus goes back to heaven, this is after the resurrection. This is after all the disciples have, and at the end of John, the disciples receive the Holy Spirit in the means that they're born again. Jesus breathes on them, and he breathes life into them, but they still haven't received what they need. And so in Acts 2, they are baptized in the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit comes on them, and then Peter goes and preaches, and 3,000 people get saved. 3,000. Okay, I think that is a way huge far cry from where Peter started out at Jesus's feet, saying, depart from me, I am a sinful man. Peter couldn't see 3,000 people in his future at that point, but Jesus could. And so I just want to encourage you. This keeps going over and over in my heart and my mind. You're not finished yet. Okay. He knows the end from the beginning, and there's still something way out there. And even beyond that, in Acts 2, Peter moves beyond that. He lives a life of ministry. He goes on to write, I think, 2 books of the Bible. I could be wrong. He goes on to write First and Second Peter, and he also, tradition says that he was crucified upside down because he didn't feel worthy to be crucified or in the same way that Jesus was. And that's what tradition says. The Bible doesn't say that. So Peter's life started at one space and ended in another. And there was a whole bunch of growth and a whole bunch of ministry and a whole bunch of life in between. And so I want to encourage somebody today. I'm encouraging myself today. I'm preaching to myself. A lot of these things that I say, I feel like probably are just the Lord talking to me, and then I'm sharing them with you. So you're not finished yet. He still has things for you to do. And if you feel like you're stuck in an in-between state, don't worry. He's still teaching you. He's still teaching you right where you're at, and he's going to continue to teach you. And there's many, many, many more seasons to come. So I hope you have an awesome day and that this has blessed you and encouraged you just a little bit. It did me. Have a good night.